by Baylor men's basketball radio analyst Pat Nunley, who we have not talked to Pat in a while, and I've missed him terribly, not being on the show. Gives great insight on not only Baylor, but the rest of the Big 12. And Pat, this one, it would be, throwing at too much, as far as the weight of this game, but this could really be kind of a swing game as Baylor heads down the stretch. If they can, win a game at home against the best team in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. There have been a couple of swing games. We thought the Iowa State game was a swing game, and it was. And that was a huge win for Baylor to just sort of stake a claim to the top 3 or 4 in the league. And right now they're number 4. Actually, they're tied with Kansas and Texas Tech at 8 and 5. So that was a swing game. And I think this one could absolutely be that for Baylor. Did not play well at BYU. In fact, I thought stepped back a little bit in that game. The things that Baylor typically brings to a game, they did not do. And I think playing in Provo had a lot to do with that. So now, and the good news about being in the Big 12 is you don't have to let that linger. Have a huge opportunity tomorrow, and absolutely a quad win if Baylor can get it. It's a tough out for the Bears, but playing at home, I think, and playing a game after a less than performance on Tuesday, I think they're positioned well. And if they win this one, they then again are one game out of first. They're 2 games out now behind the league leader, Houston, tomorrow. Get this one tomorrow and have some momentum. And by the way, they'll need it. I mean, the last stretch of games in the Big 12 for Baylor are brutal. I mean, it's the upper echelon of the league, and could start tomorrow. Sure hope so.
Pat, what did you think about your experience and the crowd and just the atmosphere in Provo the other night?
Craig, it was really about what I expected it would be. I've been up there. I played up there years ago, and then we went up years ago with Pierre Jackson and those guys. And it is as good a home crowd as there is in the league, really. It's right there with Fog Allen. It's different than Allen Fieldhouse, but it's 17,000 people, and they are I won't call them hostile. They're just too nice to be hostile. But it is a tough place to play. And, when you go to a place like that, and BYU is such a rhythm offensive team, you have to make them uncomfortable somehow. And they were never uncomfortable in that game. Even when Baylor made 7 of its first 8 shots, BYU never flinched. And that's just that place for BYU, I think, gives them 10 points. And they use those 10 points to their advantage. It was a great place to go watch a game. And the people up there are genuinely nice. Now, there's no doubt about who they're pulling for, but those people, they're so nice and so hospitable. It's really almost hard to believe, but it is genuine. But they're sure glad to beat us and send us home with a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Pat,
yeah.
It's wild for me to hear you say it's kind of like the Fog. And I just made my first trip there when Kansas played Houston with my Jayhawk bride. And the thing I found intimidating about that place is it's very clear when you walk in that they're telling you who invented basketball.
No question.
The rules are there, but the fans are so the fans are so smart about the game itself. Like, they know exactly when to do things to affect the game. And if BYU's like that, like let's add another tough place to play in the Big 12. It's nuts.
Yeah, and it may not be that, but it's awfully close. And I think the difference, Paul, is what you just described. You go to Kansas, and there is a museum in the arena, right? It's all about college basketball, the history of college basketball. So you got to give Fog Allen the nod there, but it's as difficult to play at the Marriott Center as it is at Fog Allen. At least it was for Baylor the other night. Baylor played better at Kansas than it did at BYU.
Yeah,
just put it that way.
That's true.
Yeah.
Pat, your thoughts on losing Langston Love again? Looks like the last reports from a couple of hours ago that he's back to day-to-day, same status as before the BYU game with that ankle injury. I guess you're kind of used to dealing with this now, but your thoughts on the impact there?
Well, it's an impact for sure because he's not on. Well, I mean, he's shooting 53% from the three-point line in Big 12 play, and that is a big number. And not only does he shoot it well, the key, I think, down the stretch tomorrow and then down the stretch, and really any game Baylor plays, you got to attack the rim. And, Jaden Nunn does it violently. Ray J. Dennis just kind of lives there. But a guy that knows how to get the ball to the rim and finish strong is Langston Love. He's big, he's strong, he knows how to use his body, he uses it well. He's a really good free throw shooter, and he's old. He's wise. There's a lessons learned about Langston Love. He never flinches in the league, doesn't matter where they're playing. So it's a loss. It sure is. And, with him not being able to play, Jaden Nunn has played extremely well. In fact, I thought going into the BYU game, he was the hottest player in the Big 12. Newcomer of the week, player of the week, the week before. So he's filled in nicely, but that's a big hole to fill with Langston Love not being able to play, particularly as you look at getting to the finish line in the Big 12. You really need both barrels loaded, and we're going to miss him if he doesn't play.
Pat, what is your best strategy for attacking this Houston team that they play so hard? I mean, there's not, and Kelvin Sampson has got it instilled in this team in particular, and not that he didn't with the other ones, but this one seems to be a little bit different in that there's not a possession that they go, we're fine here, we're up by 8. Like, we could be up by 11 if we do this the right way. Like every single time down the floor, they just wear you out. And Baylor's a team that plays hard too, but Houston has nearly perfected it.
They have, and to me, Houston's identity is defense. And it is not a coincidence that the two best defensive teams in the league played for first place on Monday. That's Houston and Iowa State. And Houston is going to guard you. And in fact, they're in the same league defensively that Baylor's national championship team was, I believe. They don't really have the length. They've got some rim protection. They probably could use more. But they get after you. They lead the league in almost every defensive statistic. They allow opponents to score, get this, in conference play, 61 points a game. So they are nasty defensively. And because of that, or maybe they can do that because they are so physical. We thought BYU was a good offensive rebounding team. Houston is number 2 in the league in offensive rebounds per game. This is kind of interesting. University of Houston has 2 of the top 6 offensive rebounding players in the league. And they don't have a player in the top 15 individual rebounders in defensive rebounding. So they go to the glass like a pack of rabid dogs, and they're going to do that again tomorrow. But they start with defense. And so strategy-wise, you have to touch the paint. You have to get to the paint. You have to get to the free throw line. And that's easier said than done against a team that really defends well, particularly on the perimeter. But they're rugged, and it's their identity is defense, and it's toughness. And so Bears are going to have to. It's the old toughest team wins thing. Bears are going to have to be tough tomorrow.
You think it's going to be fun to see LJ Cryer back, and you think he gets a warm reception, or you think it's going to be a little chilly from the Baylor fans?
Craig, I'll put it this way. He's not going to sneak into that arena.
Right,
They know who he is. And, I don't know I kind of do know what to expect. It's not going to be a warm reception. It's just not. But that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Transfer portal, free agency, you go somewhere else in the league, you expect what's coming. He's going to get a lot of flack tomorrow, and that's just the way it is. The time that he was here, played on 2 championship teams, played on a national championship team. So he's had really good times here. He was a very good player for Baylor. And again, in the transfer portal thing, this is just Nunley on transfer portal. You can't blame the kid. You can't. You can't blame Matt Meyer. You can't blame LJ Cryer. There's a lot that goes into the decision to transfer, and he made the decision that was best for him. He's a good kid. He's a really good player. And so that'll be my attitude, but I don't think that attitude is shared by most of the crowd that'll be there tomorrow.
Well, the other thing Baylor fans need to know is Scott Drew, when it comes to that staff, when it comes to the transfer portal, basically throws in pennies and gets out $100 bills most of the time. So occasionally when you lose, like, in the Vegas slots way of that the transfer portal works, they're coming up all three most of the time. So yeah, sometimes you get to give, right?
Yeah, that's right. And the transfer portal giveth and the transfer portal taketh away.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it works. This is not funny, but it's kind of interesting. So we're at West Virginia and the student section's right down there on the floor, and they're handing out one-pagers with mug shots of players who had transferred from West Virginia to another team. And of course there's Jalen Bridges. And at the top of the mug shot, the word traitors is on this one pager. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. If that's the definition of a traitor, West Virginia is starting 5 traitors tonight.
Yeah, very good point.
They're not the Mountaineers anymore. They're the Benedict Arnolds.
Yeah.
Like that's.
I guess. But just, you know what? Get used to it because it's not going to change anytime soon.
Oh, no, especially not with the further news today about NIL and how that's basically. We thought it was Wild West before. Now it's completely no rules after the news today. I was just curious. I mean, we're at Provo, and obviously BYU's got a very solid team. We know Houston. We've talked about them. UCF, it's a bit more of a struggle right now. The adjustment in Cincinnati, losing 2 brands like Texas and Oklahoma, like that's certainly going to be felt in some areas, Pat. But now that you've gotten a bit of a taste of the 4 new schools, and granted, there's another 4 that are on their way next year. But just how do you kind of feel about the way the future of the Big 12 basketball landscape is taking shape, given what's coming in, what's leaving?
Well, I'm excited about it, and I'm an old school guy. I mean, we've been playing Texas forever and Oklahoma since the Big 12. So, I'd like for those rivalries to continue, but it's just the way life is now in college basketball. But to answer your question, I like it. BYU is a great addition. Cincinnati is going to get better. UCF is going to get better. Those 2 teams understand what Big 12 basketball is all about now that they've been in the league. And there's a lot of history with Cincinnati. They're going to get good again. UCF is going to make a commitment to it. And BYU, they're 7-6 in the league, 19-7 overall. They were picked to finish, I think, 13th in the league. So these guys have come in and realized if we're going to play in the Big 12 and compete, we got to get better. And they're going to do that. And then, bringing in these other teams, my gosh, add Arizona. So think how good the league is right now. Mm-hmm. Now add Arizona to it. Mm-hmm. And we just got back from a 5-day swing, West Virginia, which is 3 hours there, and then West Virginia to Provo. That's 4 hours, and it's 2.5 hours back. We're going to do that 2 or 3 times next year.
Yikes. Yeah.
So it's different. It's different, but I'm excited about it. I think the best basketball conference in the country just got better.
Yeah, absolutely, Pat. The rest of the league in the Big 12, I'm curious on your opinion on this, is good. I mean, they're good. They've got Iowa State is fantastic. Baylor, I mean, getting that win over Iowa State, like even now, just kind of resonates. It was a swing game, but, they have had a loss since then, but sent them on a nice little path. But Kansas is good, but not Kansas good. Like Kansas fans will tell you, like this is not the vintage we're used to drinking. There's something missing there. Is there outside of Houston a team that you think could make a legitimate deep run in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, Iowa State can, mm-hmm. and again, the defense just speaks to me. I don't think you can win a championship, a national championship, even a conference championship, if you can't defend really well, because as we've seen with Baylor, offense is not going to travel, and you're just not going to be at your best offensively, particularly in this league every night. And so if you can rely on your defense to get you through a tough game, you've got a real chance. And to me, that's really where Baylor is. On a night where you're not playing well offensively, can you still win a close game, tough game in this league? But to answer your question, Paul, Iowa State can make a run. Kansas can make a run. They always can. They've got the guys. They're not very deep, but they've got guys. And then I think Baylor, Texas Tech, and TCU could all find a bit of a rhythm and make a run, get hot. The key, I think, at this stage of the game is you've got to be confident you've got to be playing well, and you've got to be healthy. And that's just what it's going to take. Baylor not completely healthy right now, but if you've got those three things and you can get into a bit of a groove, you can make a run. And so those teams I mentioned, and then there's probably a surprise among the others in the league, just don't know. It's hard to tell right now because there are so many teams out there that fly below the radar who are legitimately good and can make a run. It's crazy. I don't think I've ever seen the parity in college basketball that I've seen this year, and it goes back to the transfer portal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Pat, enjoy tomorrow. I'll see you there. Well, actually, this is the first time I've been able to get out to the pavilion. I'm very ashamed of myself, but look, I'm married now. Things are different in my life.
I get it. You know what, Paul? Your priorities are right.
Thank you.
Stick with that.
Yes.
But you're going to enjoy tomorrow. I can say that for sure.
Yes. And we'll be there, of course, a week from tomorrow as well, even though I will not be sitting with my wife because I've done that once when Kansas is playing. So anyway, but Pat, always great to talk to you, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, guys.
All right.
Always a pleasure.
Right,
okay,
bye.
see you later.
Wow. Yeah, Pat, the great Pat.